All, I'm going to call the State of Rhode Island Coastal Resources Management Council semi-monthly meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, May 14, 2024. I would ask that the record reflect the council members that are present, as well as staff members from CRMC that are present here this evening. The first matter on our agenda will be approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, that being April 23, 2024. I know Lisa had disseminated them. If there are no questions, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Move to approve the minutes.
Motion made. Is there a second? Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Subcommittee reports. Director Willis.
One subcommittee report, Mr. Chair. Planning and Procedures met earlier today, where they had on their agenda a discussion on whether or not to begin rulemaking on a petition that the council has received to change the water type along shoreline in North Kingstown adjacent to Woodnessa Country Club. The Planning and Procedures Committee directed staff to begin the advanced notice of proposed rulemaking underneath the Office of Regulatory Reforms Procedures. We will do that starting tomorrow.
Any questions of Director Willis on that explanation? Okay. Staff reports.
I have a couple matters, Mr. Chair, just to bring to your attention. I mentioned in previous meetings that we had set up what I call the CRMC Day up at the State House, and that was held last Thursday, where we wanted to showcase a couple of the projects that the council's been doing, primarily with shoreline lateral access and the shoreline lateral access bill that was passed last year into law, and how we're implementing that, as well as our recreational fishing tool that we developed with the University of Rhode Island to get a handle on taking the anecdotal information that we all know where recreational fishing occurs and actually giving data behind it, so that we have a more accurate and less subjective review of where and how recreational fishing occurs in Rhode Island waters in our regulatory review processes as well. So that event, if you will, was well received. We had several senators and reps walk by and we explained. It was kind of like in a poster session that we all did in college. So I want to thank Laura Dwyer for helping put that together, Laura Miguel, Leah Feldman, as well as the crew at the Coastal Resources Center at URI for helping us pull that off. It was very well received. And as a follow-up, I'll just say, pat ourselves on the back. The recreational fishing tool is being picked up and down the East Coast by a number of states that are very interested in how we pulled that off, as well as the Northeast Regional Ocean Council wants to do something about it to make it more regional and get a better understanding of where recreational fishing occurs in the offshore environment relative to inshore water. So it was a very good task, and I just want to let the council know that we have a very good tool to use that others are looking at as well, and how they can steal it from us. Tomorrow night, I'm giving a presentation at the Narrow River Land Trust's annual meeting. They want to just get a better understanding of what the CRMC's role is in resilience planning, coastal erosion, storm management, et cetera. So I'll be going to their annual meeting tomorrow night. We also, staff appeared with representatives from FEMA at the request of Senator Gu and Representative Spears down at the Quanticottag Grange a couple weeks ago, where the senator and rep were setting up FEMA reps to be available to residents of the area to help them deal with storm damage issues, but they wanted CRMC there to understand and explain what our role is and what private property owners can do and expect in response to storms, and what are some of the regulations, and what are some of the strategies we're employing, and what are some of the things that we can look into the future to minimize storm damage. So Emily and Laura Miguel, we were there that a couple Mondays ago, if I'm not mistaken. And while the meeting was primarily for residents to pepper FEMA with questions, CRMC took all the questions that night. So we were very well received. We did a great job. Thank you to Emily and Laura for their input in answering a lot of the questions that night. And lastly, so some council members might not have been participating in this, but others have. Every 5 years, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric atmospheric administration. Because we are funded by them, we have to go through a federal evaluation of our work. Every 5 years, they perform this evaluation. It's called the Section 312 evaluation. That's Section 312 of the Coastal Zone Management Act. Our 5 years from the last evaluation is up. They'll be coming in the fall to begin that process. We just got notice of that through the NOAA team has contacted us, and we'll be setting up a schedule of meetings that would happen in the fall, probably not till November, December time, but we'd have a lot of advanced planning to do between then and now, getting them materials, getting them update information, getting information on the council members themselves, where they will come and talk to stakeholders. They might want to come and talk to you all, but we'll all be figuring that out in the next coming months and setting that up. But that 5-year evaluation will occur this end of the calendar year. We hope to have an actual evaluation report probably this time next year. So that's it, Mr. Chair.
Any questions of Mr. Willis? Thank you, Jeff. First on our agenda before the council for presentation, consideration, and action of funding under the state coastal and estuary habitat restoration trust fund. The Rhode Island Coastal and Estuarine Habitat Restoration Team's Technical Advisory Committee, parentheses TAC, close parentheses, convened on Friday, May 3rd, 2024 to rank the 8 full proposals submitted to CRMC for consideration of funding under the state's Coastal and Estuary Habitat Restoration Trust Fund. Of the proposals reviewed for the 2023-2024 funding cycle, 7 are recommended for funding, and the projects recommended for full funding are: number 1, adaptive management and maintenance of Little Lucia Check Creek Salt Marsh Restoration Project at $18,750. Number 2, removal of the Rodman Mill Dam and associated site improvements to enhance climate resiliency on the Anaquatucket River in North Kingston. That'd be for $49,798. Number 3, data collection and analysis to support fish passage at the Pontiac Dam on the Patuxent River. They want a $50,000 Breakhot Pond Dam removal feasibility study for $38,000. Next, the Woonasquatucket River Steam Bank stabilization, San Souci Drive, $50,000. And number 6, underwater video collection in support of eelgrass restoration, $18,452. And on our agenda indicates project not recommended for funding at this time are Black Point Shoreline Access Improvements. And who from staff will? Emily Hall is here to make a presentation to the council and address any questions that we may have. Thank you, Emily.
Good evening, everyone. As the coastal geologist and a member of the Technical Advisory Committee, I will be providing a brief overview of the Habitat Restoration Trust Fund program and then giving an update on the history. For the purposes of not confusing ourselves with technology, I have printed out slides for the council members, and these will be included in the meeting minutes as well. So to begin, to recap on the enabling legislation, this can be found in Chapter 46, Section 23.1. Rather than reading the whole thing, I will simply read the summary. The state's economy is directly dependent on the health and productivity of Rhode Island's coastal waters, including Narragansett Bay and the coastal ponds. $250,000 of the fees that are collected under the Uniform Oil Spill Response and Prevention Statute are deposited into a trust fund precisely for the restoration of coastal and estuarine projects. As far as the types of projects that are funded, we look at the full suite of estuarine habitats. That includes everything from seagrasses that are completely below water up to our salt marshes and our streams that have anadromous fish runs through them. So basically anything part of the estuary, anything that is part of the estuary and focused on habitat and ecosystem services. As far as the restoration goals for many of these projects, they vary. There is a focus, however, on restoring the structure of the habitat itself, and then believe that the functions of the habitat will then kick in after. So when it comes to restoring habitat structure, that can include the chemical, biological, or physical restoration, and can include reestablishment or maintaining hydrology, such as tidal flow, restoring flood regimes, or reestablishing topography. Also included under this trust fund are projects that have concerns with non-native and invasive species, that are revegetating spots that have had some kind of negative human impact on them, or controlling, reducing, and eliminating substance pollution. One of the interesting things about this specific funding is that although we allocate a certain amount of funds every year, all of these projects have large matching funds. So since this fund was established in 2001, the total matching funds that have gone towards restoration projects in the state associated with this is over $33 million. And we are at a funding ratio of around 7-1. So for every $1 we spend, they tend to spend another $7 that they find through some sort of match to achieve these habitat restoration goals. The Technical Advisory Committee has representatives and members from across the habitat restoration biology spaces. They encompass experts in fisheries, wildlife ecology, aquatic habitats, and restoration. We have representatives from federal committees, including the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, NOAA, the EPA, and then as well as state partner agencies, including DEM, Division of Fish and Wildlife, and Mosquito Abatement Coordination. I serve on it for the Coastal Resource Management Council, and then as well as nonprofit programs at the city. As far as the evaluation criteria, this is mandated in our legislation, and every member of the Technical Advisory Committee will go through and rank these proposals based on how they are focused on these specific evaluation criteria. So just for a quick highlight, we look at how, if they are consistent with the state goals for restoration strategies. We evaluate if there is adequate personnel funding. So is the agency that's supplying this actually going to be able to carry out this work? We evaluate their monitoring plan to ensure that their short-term and long-term restoration can be achieved. We look at the effectiveness of any non-source pollution management efforts within the greater zone. We also evaluate whether this specific activity is going to be replacing habitat losses that benefit fish and wildlife resources. So even if it's an excellent project that we think should be funded for some reason, if it's not focused on habitat, then sometimes that will affect our rankings. We'll also look at water quality improvements. We take into account rare and endangered species, the level and extent of collaborations, whether that is with the private property owners, which often comes up with dam removals, municipalities, state organizations, the Army Corps, what have you. And then the potential direct economic benefits to the surrounding communities and the state as a whole. As far as the timeline for this year, pre-proposals were due in December. And the Technical Advisory Committee responded to those pre-proposals in February. Full applications were due April 1. We all convened last week or so to make our recommendations to the council. And tonight we are hoping for approval of our recommendations and to notify them of their reports. As the chair mentioned, we have 6 projects that are seeking funding. And I'm happy to go into details about them if anyone has further questions that are not covered in the information packet the council members would have seen.
How many proposals did you receive?
We received 7 and we're recommending 6 for funding. Yes.
Because I think we're used to getting maybe 20 or so. Was that not correct?
This was a pretty good year, I believe. So this was my first year on the Technical Advisory Committee.
And
So
the 6th one is not the 6th one, the 7th one.
Mhm.
Is that kind of held in reserve if something happens? It's still one of the ones we have.
potentially, yes.
Yes, but that's it, yeah. And you mentioned the match, and when I went through that, it's one of the things that surprised me. Because 5 of the 6, the match was, 7,000 out of 26,000 or something. So I didn't see we do have the one big one in here, which is really substantial, which is the Providence one, where the match was 215,000 and the total was 265. So that one makes your
Yes.
numbers split. But I was
This
a
was
little
also,
disappointed in the other ones. I'm surprised that there wasn't more of a match on some of them.
This was a little bit smaller in terms of that ratio of
Yeah.
match to
Well,
funding
you have
for
to
this
have
year.
one good one, I mean, that's.
Yes, so in other years, that ratio does tend to be higher, and there is
Yeah.
one, so the underwater video collection is sort of eelgrass restoration, so that proposal was brought forth by the University of Rhode Island. I think they could have listed a few things in their match, that they didn't wind up, but things get complicated as soon as you
And
get
it's
professor
not a-
contracts
You know,
involved.
so much money that we gotta really get nervous, right?
Sure.
But, yeah, is there an end to that trust, the money that's available?
No,
We've been
there,
doing it
that
for a long
amount of
time.
money is allocated every year.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it goes on. There isn't a bottom to the well yet, I guess.
No,
That's good, because the work is good, and all of these things, you know, helping the fish in the estuaries and things like that is all, it's really, really positive stuff. So I was happy to see him. I was just very surprised on the small matches on some of them, like taking down, dams and things like that. I mean, that's important, very important.
Indeed,
So
yes.
it's good. I think your choices are good. I just wanted to comment on that. And I was surprised you didn't get more than 7.
yes.
It seems to me that at years past, we'd get quite a bit more than that. But anyway, thank you for the,
Of course.
answered my questions.
Any other questions, Mr. Flynn?
The project that didn't get funded,
Mhm.
what was the reason?
So the project that didn't get funded, it was for the Black Point shoreline access. So there is a pretty significant erosion problem on that trail over by the beach. I walk it all the time personally. And they had a beautiful proposal that they put forth, and we could read it, but it wasn't solid intact. So I kind of alluded to that when I was going over it. I think personally, the work is necessary, but it was all hardscaping, and they didn't include any revegetation plans, for example.
Could there be
So
another source of funding for that kind of work?
absolutely, and we're planning on getting in contact with them so the Oscar grants, for example, I believe that funding is due, the applications are due June
And that would be
15th.
like the Cliff Walk in Newport in a sense. I mean, it's a similar, well, of course, Cliff Walk is much more famous in
Yes.
terms of tourism and so forth, but
We all agree that we want to see the work done, so
Okay,
we'll be
just
working
not
with them
through
to
this
make sure, just not through this specific funding source.
and I have another question. Can you explain the term electroshocking to me?
Yes, so one of the,
The fish are not going to be killed in order to count them, are they?
I'm gonna start this by saying I'm a geologist, not a fish scientist. I don't believe so. So for the folks in the room, there's a dam feasibility study, and they're looking to do surveys of the fish populations that are currently there. And one of the techniques for that is electroshocking to basically see what fish are in the water.
I'm very familiar with that, and it's just a good counting method. They come to really fast. Sometimes they make a mistake and jump in the boat, but
I think it just stunts them. Yes.
other than that, it's very safe and very effective method. And I noticed that there were areas that you couldn't use that because it was too shallow.
Yes.
So,
In which case they're pursuing eDNA.
Well, they look like great projects and very important. Thank you.
That's all you want to say. Right, any other questions of Ms. Hall? Anything else to add on it? So at this time, if we're in a posture, I'd entertain a motion to approve the recommendations.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations.
Motion's been made by Mr. Flynn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Reynolds. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the council. Mr. Flynn,
Aye.
Mr. Izzy,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez,
aye.
Mr. Russolino,
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon,
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
I too, Raymond Moyer, vote aye. The motion passes unanimously.
I would just like to add, and maybe in the minutes, the job well done. Well, Emily and
Technical Advisor Committee is a great group to work with. So we had some really good projects to evaluate this year.
just
Thank you. Okay. Brings us to our next matter, administrative applications for review and action before the full council. 2023-10-104. Algonquin Gas Transmission LLC to replace a portion of the pipeline from the pump station in Portsmouth to East Main Road in Middle Compton. And the applicant is here with counsel, correct?
Yes,
Could you just identify yourself, please?
or good evening, Joelle Rocha, attorney for the applicant tonight.
Who's got this one first? And Rich Lucia has this for, I'm sorry, who? Amy's got it?
My bad.
We both
I'm just going by what's there. Someone's got it. And if you could just make a presentation, please, to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you indicated, this is a proposal to replace a portion of a natural gas line that has been in existence since the early 1950s. It's a linear pipeline project that extends from just south of Black Point in Portsmouth to just south of Secaucet in Little Compton. The work is within an existing utility easement, and where it is not, sign-offs from all the affected property owners have been received. This was reviewed as a freshwater wetlands in the vicinity of the coast program, because there is some temporary impact to the buffer zone associated with cotton swamp in Portsmouth and some of its associated nearby wetlands. The proposal also crosses beneath the Semimonthly River, with no impact to coastal features or the Semimonthly River, as the entirety of that will be done by directional drilling. The portion under Cotton Swamp is also going to be done by directional drilling. There was some temporary disturbance within the buffer zone associated with the wetland, which will be restored upon completion of the project. The application was reviewed, as I said, as a freshwater wetlands application, and it was conditionally approved in February of 2024, and a draft assent was written and provided to the applicant. It was a draft because at that time, we did not have all of the signatures from the affected property owners. There was a programmatic challenge between our program and some of the federal things the applicant was going through, where we required it ahead of time, they required it afterwards, and needed some notification from us before they could get to that step. So we wrote up a draft assent and waited to get the conditions to be met, which was the sign-offs from all the affected property owners. The sign-offs were received in mid-March of 2024, it's quite a number of them. And as the assent was being prepared to be a final assent, not a draft assent, an objection was received. Since that objection was received, several others were received, which is why it is before you tonight. Staff has reviewed the objections under the freshwater wetlands program, as well as the Red Book, and believes that the objections do not appear to rise to a substantive objection, and has no objections with council approving this application this evening.
Thank you. Any questions of the council of Amy?
Just have a comment going through it, and the objection was withdrawn, or you just mentioned that it kind of disappeared.
It did not disappear.
Yeah,
The several objections came in.
okay.
We reviewed the objections and do not believe that they rise to substantive.
All right, so it was a decision on our part.
Correct.
Okay, great. But what I really wanted to say is that, I mean, this project is kind of like a must-do. I mean, we're worried about climate change, and we can't have methane leaks off into the atmosphere and stuff. Little Compton is a site that it does come ashore, but we don't use any of that gas that I know of. But it's definitely a necessary infrastructure, and we simply don't need any problems with the existing pipelines. They've been there for a while, I think, and need an update. And I did see where they were going to increase the diameter, but so what, you know?
It's my understanding that this is the only
Yeah.
natural gas pipeline to Aquidneck Island.
Yeah, it is. And just a little history from, I don't know, whenever they put it in 50 years ago or something, but they were responsible for killing off all the rattlesnakes into when they put that pipeline through, they went through a rattlesnake. And, you know, we used to have great fun going to the town dump, and the guy would have a couple of rattlesnakes captured that he caught up in the hills. So that's my little liberty for the night, but in my opinion, you've got to do it. I mean, I just don't see any way that we shouldn't go.
Any other questions of Amy from the council? Okay, Councilor, please.
Thank you. Minus the rattlesnakes. Silva and Mr. Gomez really stole my thunder on this. What we did want to emphasize, and we have our team here tonight, a representative of Algonquin, as well as our expert. The report is in the record. A lot of this content is in the record, so we will present at a very high level. Again, this is the only pipeline to Aquidneck Island. This is one of the regulatory steps in the process for this, ultimately culminating in approval from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. The State Historic Preservation has reviewed it, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Department of Interior, Fish and Wildlife have also reviewed this. So we're here on our stop along the way. I would also submit, as Ms. Silva said, that none of the objections received were substantive in our opinion. We won't be addressing things like we should be shifting to renewable energy. We're really here on an existing pipeline that needs to be updated. On that note, enough from me, and I will turn it over to our technical people to describe the process and really the studies that went into where we are today.
Sure. Hello, my name is David Butler. I am the project manager for Enbridge. I think everyone's already stated.
Excuse me, sir. We just need to swear you in before you begin your testimony. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
David Butler, DAVID BUTLER.
Thank you, Mr. Butler.
And once again, your position?
Project manager.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Sure. So major purpose of the project, reliability. We want to be able to provide gas service to the island. 12-inch pipeline. We have two drills, one that goes under the wetland, the other that goes under the river itself. Our operating pressures stay roughly the same. We go up a little bit, but we don't increase our service at all. We are mostly doing this, we're only doing this for reliability of the island. That's our main purpose of this project. So everything else is pretty straightforward for us. The means, the methods, and things like that are typical to what we do on pipeline construction. So there's no concerns from our side, anything that happens or what we're going to be doing if something does occur. We have plans in place and we'll be able to address whatever it is as it occurs in the project. So pretty straightforward for us.
Any questions of Mr. Butler? Yes, Mr. Gagnon.
So it looks like on the project plans that the pipeline is going to be well past 200 feet deep in sediment. Is that correct?
It is 200 feet deep under the river, not in sediment. The expectation is for it to be into rock. We did do core bores in the river to determine the rock elevations, the bottom of the river, things like that. At the deepest point, we're still about 40 to 50 feet below the riverbed. And then the pipe is in solid rock through that path.
There'll be no conflicts with any other pipelines or future transmission cables in the river.
Correct. We are quite a bit deeper than that, and that's part of the reason for doing that as well.
Thank you.
Will they follow the same exit and entrance, the little Compton points that are there pretty physically right now?
On the west side, it's a different location. That's where we're back on the east side of the swamp. On the east side, we're reasonably close to where that comes out to now.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Reynolds.
Two questions. One, was the condition and size of this related at all to the gas outage that happened in Newport in, I think, 2018? Is this gonna help with that supply at all for equipment?
So I will say that the pipe itself is unrelated to that issue. So that one doesn't have anything to do with the other.
So this won't help in a situation from happening again.
It is my understanding from the reports that the pipe itself was not the issue.
But the fact that this is going to be twice the size of that original pipe isn't going to help with the capacity.
It doesn't increase the capacity. What it does is basically creates a volume model, which gives us better reliability. We're able to increase our pressure a little bit, still stay within requirements, but then also then provide a better flow to the island.
And you're limited on how much gas you can bring to the island, right?
That's correct. We have like hard service to the island and we're kept within our requirements and around what we've had for contracts in the area.
Okay. And then I noticed there was one section of pipe that's left in place and most of it's removed. And when it lands on Westman, why was that kept in place?
I'm not exactly, we're leaving the majority of the pipe in place and routing it in place to fill the void. We'll take out the pipe that we need to on the west side to be able to make those tie-ins and cross over from the new pipe to the old pipe. So the vast majority gets grouted in place and we'll just take out what's required to be able to keep both, to put the new pipeline into service.
Flynn.
Many of the comments received seem to focus on increasing the size of the pipe as opposed to the pipe itself. And you're saying that your intention is not to increase the flow, and I believe, without putting words in people's mouths, that many of the objections are based on the fact that as a state, we're trying to wean ourselves off of natural gas as a primary fuel source over time. So I think I heard you say that you're not going to increase the flow, but you would have the capacity to increase the flow, would you not, if you're doubling the width of the pipe?
Or you're not, because we're going from a 12-inch back down to a 6-inch, so you're bottlenecked at the island anyways. So,
Oh, I see. So,
right, so what
it's
we've
just
done
in this,
behind that, we've created a volume that we can draw off of.
that doesn't create any other problems, like, 4 lanes of 195 going down into 2? It's not
But that's
like
what
that.
the increase in pressure.
It took me 50 minutes to get there.
We've increased the pressure of that pipe a little bit to account for that, so that's what that increase in pressure is, which in turn allows that on the downstream side.
And among the options in your report, I didn't see any discussion of an option being just replacing a 12-inch pipe. I mean, a 6-inch pipe with another 6-inch pipe. That's not an option.
To keep the condition the way it is, it technically would be an option, but for what it's worth, for the effort that we go in to do what we're doing, we're able to increase our reliability as well as then give a larger piece of pipe that can be provide a better service to the island. So by doing that, we're taking the time and the effort to be able to make it a better situation without having to keep issues from occurring down the road potentially.
And several of the comments also mentioned the possibility of relining the pipe. Is that an option?
No, by relining it, you'll reduce the diameter. So depending on the size of the pipe, your wall thickness on that line would be a 1/2 inch to 1 inch thick. You could reduce that down to as much as 4 inches, let's say. As well as those liners are typically more for a lower pressure system. So we're up over, we're at like 368 PSI, I believe. So that would be typically over what a liner is good for, as well as what we like to do is have a much larger safety factor in place. So when you consider the fact that we want to be able to place a safety factor, we want to be able to test and things up to almost double that pressure. So when we do our testing, we do different things like that. We got to be able to have enough buffer to feel safe with it.
And relining the pipe would reduce that.
Correct. We'd have to operate at a lower pressure and restrict the flow.
Thank you.
Any further questions of Mr. Butler? Thank you, sir.
My name is Caitlin Wheeler.
Ms. Wheeler, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
My name is Caitlin Wheeler, K-A-T-E-L-Y-N, W-H-E-E-L-E-R.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler.
I just wanted to provide some background on the environmental surveys and permitting that we completed for the project. We did studies of wetlands and water bodies. We identified natural resources within the project area that would be jurisdictional with the Army Corps of Engineers as well as CRMC and Rhode Island DEM. And we did habitat assessments for threatened and endangered species. We also did archaeological surveys to identify any potentially sensitive archaeological sites that may be located within the project area. Following those surveys, we prepared applications with Fish and Wildlife. We reached out to Rhode Island DEM for input. We completed consultation with Rhode Island SHPO and the associated federally recognized tribes in the area. We completed consultation with all those agencies, and then we incorporated that into the CRMC application that we submitted to the CRMC. And through those consultations and our permit applications, we found that the impacts would be minimal and significant, would not negatively impact the greater environmental area. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
And Caitlin, this is all in the SCA report.
That's correct. The application that was submitted to the CRMC.
Any questions of Ms. Wheeler? Thank you.
The one thing I failed to add was, and last minute, I sent it over, so it may not be part of your packet, but there was a letter in support sent to FERC from Rhode Island Energy, who summed up the need. It really sums up the need for this safety, reliability, and integrity that we've been talking about, and I can submit that into the record if it's not already in the record.
Attorney Coach, so we can take your representation on those documents, but unfortunately, under 1.5.9 of the management procedures, we can't actually take that into evidence.
Fair enough. For now, any questions?
Any follow-up questions at this point from the council? And that's as far as your presentation, correct? Is there anyone else present this evening that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Okay. Is there anyone present this evening that wishes to speak in opposition of the application? All right, we're gonna start over here with yourself. No, we're gonna start, yep, in front, and then we're gonna go down. Well, no, here's what I'm doing. I'm starting with you, and I'm going down the line, and then we can do yourself, sir. And
Do we have to go up there?
yes, please.
No, ma'am, but would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Okay, Lorraine Savard, Lorraine Savard, Savard. I wrote up a little something, not very long. I asked, what is the purpose of the Coastal Resource Management Council? You all must know the purpose, but I did my research and it was a revelation. ... to preserve, protect, develop, and where possible, restore the coastal resources of the state for this and generations to come, to produce the maximum benefit for society, for the best interest of the state and its people, to protect the state's resources. So, allowing the expansion of a fracking gas line does none of the above mentioned admirable goals. The CRMC must not permit this abomination to move forward. I implore you not to allow the destruction of the beautiful Subcommittee River for the sake of delivering a soon-to-be obsolete power source, that is, natural gas. Remember, natural gas is a fracking lie, and so is its more dangerous sister, liquefied natural gas. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Sabat? Thank you. Next in that row that wishes to speak, going this way.
Hi, my name is David Brunetti, Brunetti, 935 Sherman Farm Road, Harrisville, Rhode Island. I'm also a member of Climate Action Rhode Island. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to present my comments. As someone who has spent much time and effort to get Rhode Island's Act on Climate legislation passed and signed into law on April 14th, 2021, I cannot stand by and let this project go forward without expressing my opposition. I strongly urge you to reject this project for the following reasons. The purpose of the Act on Climate legislation is to reduce our state's collective carbon emissions to net zero by 2050. We cannot do this if this project is approved. It is obvious that there is deceit in Enbridge's stated objective for the project, which they claim is for the purpose of reliability, not additional capacity. By doubling the diameter of the pipeline, there would be an increase in its capacity by 300%. So the total amount of flow would be increased to 4 times the current capacity. It's simple math. However, even though there is a stated bottleneck of a 6-inch diameter pipe elsewhere, this could easily be later on diameter increase to allow for this increase in flow. So instead, they should increase the reliability of the pipeline, their stated objective, by relining the existing pipeline via a process known as cured in place lining, CIPL, which can line pipelines from 4 inches to 48 inches in diameter, creating a durable and impermeable composite pipe within the original pipeline without affecting flow capacity. This is what they should be doing. Additionally, the proposed process for expansion of the pipeline, which is a mix of horizontal directional drilling for some segments and cut and cover for other segments, is very disruptive to the environment of the workspace. Horizontal directional drilling is often touted as much less disruptive, but can experience accidents, through frackouts, which leaks during drilling mud into the environment. Notably, Enbridge has a bad record with horizontal directional drilling. Enbridge's Line 3, built in 2021, had 28 frackouts when under construction. To add to the potential negative impacts from such a project, the Subcommittee River is home to sea turtles, Atlantic sturgeon, and other threatened species. A frackout could have disastrous impacts on their habitats. We do not need extra capacity for natural gas. What we do need, desperately need, is a massive transition to clean and renewable energy. By allowing this project to move forward, you would be committing us to decades more of gas use or stranded assets if the system becomes disused before its end of life. This is not acceptable. Again, thank you for providing me with the opportunity to comment on this topic.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Brunetti? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Susan Kelly, Kelley from Cranston, Rhode Island. Previously of Fairmont, West Virginia. So my experience with oil and gas companies is not a happy one. Marcellus Shale. Rhode Island and the CRMC are compelled to comply with the law, as Dave said, and Act on Climate, which mandates that we reach net zero by 2050. Expanding fossil fuel use Expanding pipelines will not help us achieve that goal. In addition, the International Energy Agency is calling internationally for an immediate end to all investment and all new investment in fossil fuel pipelines. Our very survival is at stake, and that is now on your shoulders. Beyond the absolute necessity to end expansion of fossil fuels, it would be best not to deal with perhaps untrustworthy players. Enbridge's pipeline record is not the best. Between 1996 and 2014, Enbridge had 1,270 spills of one nature or another. Moreover, Enbridge has a history of not listening and of not being truly careful. For instance, the NTSB reports that the rupture on August 1st, 2019 in Danville, Kentucky, which resulted in the release of 101.5 million cubic feet of natural gas that ignited into a massive fireball, was due to training failings and to a manufacturing defect. NTSB indicates that Enbridge knew about the defect for years and failed to properly mitigate the situation. While there are integrity management regulations that work to maintain safe and functional pipelines, it is largely up to the operator on how they identify and mitigate threats. The NTSB notes in their investigation that even though Enbridge did complete a few integrity management actions, there were several deficiencies. This article ends noting that what happened in 2019 eerily repeated from their NTSB 2012 Marshall, Michigan report. In other words, Enbridge knew ahead of time that there were difficulties, not only from warnings around the Danville, Kentucky pipeline, but also from what they should have learned from the NTSB 2012 report analysis of what happened in Marshall, Michigan. As an aside, when I read in the Algonquin report, the CRMC made available to the public, when I saw that the answer to endangered species that might be affected by the pipeline was basically that Enbridge will be careful, I was not encouraged. While you may say, oh, those pipeline problems happened years ago, I say my years of watching oil and gas fracking and pipelines and local and federal governments' unwillingness to rein them in has convinced me that anything at all that might interfere with profit or speed will be disregarded or the subject of endless lies. Let us not fool ourselves into thinking things have become better over time. According to NOAA's Office of Response and Restoration, there have been 64 incident reports in May of 2024 compared to 19 incidents in May of 2023. For the planet to survive, it is immoral and I would claim criminal to pursue any expansion of fossil fuels in any form whatsoever. I urge you to do all in your power to stop the expansion of the Sakonnet River Enbridge pipeline. It is dangerous, it is unnecessary, and only accelerates mass extinction. Stop it now. And the reason I say it's unnecessary is exactly what Dave was referring to, the lining that can repair a pipe. You don't need a new pipe and you don't need more capacity. It's like having nuclear weapons. If you got them, you might have to use them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Kelly? Thank you.
And I have information here if you would like copies. I don't know if you're allowed to take them.
And that would be subject to the safety rules I had mentioned earlier.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joel Gates, Joelgates, and I'm a resident of Gloucester, Rhode Island. I am here to voice my opposition to Enbridge an Algonquin Gas Transmission's draft permit application. I have that right. We have a climate change problem. This pipeline expansion plan is counter to what we should be doing. Rhode Island is supposed to be decreasing its reliance on fossil fuels. So increasing the size of the pipeline under the Semimonthly River is exactly the opposite of what we should be doing. The Act on Climate demands it. We should now have a plan in place to not only reduce our gas consumption, but eliminate it altogether. With this planned expansion, we're heading in the wrong direction. Enbridge is setting us up in Rhode Island, in Rhode Island residents for a lawsuit, which can happen if we do not meet our Act on Climate goals. Does Enbridge care? Supposedly they do. To prepare for tonight's meeting, I checked out Enbridge's website, and they do have a modest portfolio of wind and solar energy generation projects. It looks good, but I sense it messes with their business model. Under their sustainability tab, Enbridge states, and I quote, "As a leading North American energy delivery company, we're positioned to help society transition to a lower emissions future," end quote. Clearly, helping us is not part of Enbridge's plan. Enbridge also states, and I quote, "We're committed to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2050. That sounds great, but it is too little and too late. We have to quickly phase out all combustible fuels, including so-called clean bridge fuels like renewable natural gas. The only bridges we should be building are with real renewables like wind and solar. Please deny this application."
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Gates? Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Justin Boyan, Boyan, Providence. You need my address?
No, sir.
Okay, hi. I didn't prepare remarks, but I am in opposition to expansion of the pipeline under the Subcommittee, and on two bases. One, I think, judging from my own personal experience and also looking at national and international statistics, fossil fuel use has peaked. We see a transition already underway and accelerating. And just looking at my own usage in my home, having switched to an electric vehicle and to electric hot water heating, my own use of natural gas is down, and I think that will be true for the residents of Newport County and places served by this pipeline. So in terms of the need for expanded gas, it's not in line with the trends. We see that fossil fuel use is decreasing, not only because it has to by law in Rhode Island, but just because the technology is now available to power ourselves with clean energy. And of course, more renewable energy will be coming online soon as the wind prices go up. And then, of course, the second point is the environment and the future for my kids who are now entering adulthood. You know, we heard the testimony that Enbridge conducted environmental assessments, and they checked out, you know, the seabed and the marshland on the other side of the river, but I didn't hear a climate impact analysis. And every environmental group, you know, from Climate Action Rhode Island to the Sierra Club to Audubon to Save the Bay to the Nature Conservancy, you know, anyone who's paying attention to the science of the environmental catastrophe that we're in right now knows that the number one environmental concern is climate change. It's important to, you know, to pay attention to the health of the marsh grass and so on, but the climate crisis is what's threatening every ecosystem in Rhode Island and on Earth. And so I was very surprised that there weren't any questions about the environmental testimony that was given when the climate wasn't even mentioned. So hopefully in your paperwork, there are clear-eyed assessments about what the climate impact of an expanded pipeline would be, and I hope those can be weighed in your decision-making. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Boyan? Thank you, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen, ladies. Peter Trafton is my name. I'm a registered voter and resident of Providence, but spent actually more of my life at this point in Little Mountain, on the shore, or just above the shore of the Secundit River. Our kids and our grandkids, and even I sometimes, when the water's feeling warmer, swim in the river. We're less than half a mile from where the pipeline is going to be. Tide goes in and out, you know, it's not downstream, upstream, and the kind of river that the Secundit River is. So anything that leaks out of a pipe that is under the water is likely to be where we swim, where we windsurf, where some of us occasionally try to catch some fish who may be threatened as well. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share my own personal experience with you. I happen not to have to go very far to get here tonight, but it takes about an hour, more than that with Rich not cooperating lately, for folks from Little Compton or Tiverton or from Aquatic Island to come here and be with you tonight and share their experiences. And I would hope that there is something that could be done to give them an opportunity to have their voices recorded, as I am so privileged to be able to do tonight. I think that you've heard what my most important message is, and that is that climate change is really the villain. And that's what we all need to do to protect our families and our friends and our environment from the future. And it's getting warmer and it's getting more polluted and more dangerous for us throughout the state, not just on the coast, throughout the world, not just in Rhode Island. You know that. And you also know that the answer is that we've got to stop burning fossil fuels. Simple. It's a big project. It's going to be demanding for Rhode Islanders to make the. I fear that there will be lawsuits, but we're trying to start now to stop doing the problem building of bringing in more gas. You heard from my eloquent companions that this is going to bring more gas. It's not going to just make it a little bit more efficient or a little bit more reliable than it's been. I have colleagues who are working to try to change the whole process of energy provision to Aquidneck Island. And right now, there's a docket going on in the PUC, and I actually am privileged to participate in this too, in trying to figure out what the future of natural gas will be and how we'll be able to stop bringing natural gas into Rhode Island and stop having it provide heating and other energy sources for Rhode Islanders. This is something we're going to have to do to comply with the Act on Climate. It's something we should all do to take care of our world. I could go on, but you know what the message is. Well, thank you very, very much for the opportunity. I'm done.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Trafton? No. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Greg Garrett, G-R-E-G-G-E-R-R-I-T-T. Last year, Phoenix, Arizona, twice as many people died of heat as ever before. You go around the world, the floods, the hurricanes, the monsoons, everything that's related to the weather is going crazy and killing more people. I want you to keep that one in mind, that the climate crisis is already killing thousands of people a year. I consider these guys murderers for promoting fossil fuel use. CRMC is a member of the EC4. Have you brought this to the EC4? Did you actually talk to them about the climate implications of it? I mean, most of those people are just bureaucrats too, and they're not really gonna stand up. But, you know, the technical advisory, the advisory committees, none of those are gonna tell you that this is a good project for Rhode Island. You know, you've heard about their record, and their record isn't very good. We've all heard of Enbridge. You know, the people of Rhode Island, when given an opportunity, a fair opportunity, stop these kinds of projects. They do not let them go if you conduct a full, open, public process. You will hear hundreds of people telling you this. And you know, the CRMC has a very bad reputation, which is probably why people keep trying to disband it, because you keep screwing the people of Rhode Island with this stuff. You keep doing a lot of really bad stuff, you know, and.
So why don't you keep your comments relative to the application that's present,
The
please?
application is a direct threat to all the people of Rhode Island. I'll speak my few minutes and I will say what I think is important to this issue, which is the issue of gas pipeline. Gas pipelines are killing people. You know, we're killing them directly with explosions, but they're killing them because of climate. You know, Rhode Island is going to have sea level rise that is going faster and faster. Do you want that on your heads? Do you want that on your shoulders? You guys need to think really clearly about your obligations under Act on Climate. You know, it doesn't seem like Act on Climate affected anything you did at all. You know, DEM is focusing on Act on Climate. How come you guys aren't? That's not far front and center on your entire agenda. I mean, it's actually amazing that the CRMC is essentially saying we're neutral on gas, when you should be looking at every possible way to eliminate it. The fact that you continue to do this stuff is kind of criminal on your part. You know, I mean, I've dealt with CRMC before and nobody's happy. And, you know, I'm really hoping that they finally pass something to get rid of you guys, because all you've done is screw the people of Rhode Island repeatedly. And it's time for you to say no more fossil fuels, no more fossil fuel infrastructure whatsoever. The fact that you keep going and it gets this far says you're all incompetent fools.
Excuse me, sir.
All right, so you're done. You're done. You're done.
I'm done, and you guys are criminals.
You're done. Thank you.
And I want that on the record.
Hello, my name is Will Nakshin, and that's spelled N as in November, AKSHIAN. I live in Cumberland, Rhode Island, and I'm a member of Climate Action Rhode Island, and I'm opposed to this pipeline. And Rhode Island and the rest of the world needs to end its dependence on fossil fuels in order to mitigate the worst effects of the climate crisis. Installing this unnecessary pipeline will extend Rhode Island's dependence on fossil fuels far beyond what is needed. Continued expansion of gas infrastructure will prevent the state from meeting its climate goals that are mandated in the Act on Climate and the Renewable Energy Standard legislation that Rhode Islanders passed. This construction would also create the potential for harmful environmental damage. Repairing the existing pipeline is a far more practical and safer solution. Let's make our state a renewable energy leader instead of committing to decades more of polluting, harmful energy sources. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Nation? Say it right, Nation? Sir? Nakshin. I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing the last name right.
That's right, yes.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition? Come forward.
Thank you. My name is Chris Gadbois. It's Gadbois. And I am privileged to live right on the Subcommittee in Portsmouth.
And I would just like to echo one of the previous speakers around the accessibility of the hearings and encouraging people from the impacted area to be able to have an opportunity to speak to you all. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that you're giving us to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishes to speak in opposition? Okay. Counselor, I will call you back to the table, please. If there's anything you'd like to respond to or add to.
Sure, just briefly, Mr. Chair. We're not here tonight to debate the use of, or the current or future use of fossil fuels. We're here under CRMC's jurisdiction for your regulations for the work proposed here, which is set forth in staff reports and the draft dissent. As to the lining issue, you've heard from our project manager as to why that's not feasible. As to the fracking comment, as noted in the staff report, there is no fracking proposed under this application. And I would last add that we have reviewed the draft dissent, which contains a compliance portion with inspections required for this. No objection to any of that, and the normal course as set forth therein. We would request that this council approve the draft dissent as final, and we remain here for any additional questions.
Thank you. Any questions of the attorney? Any questions of staff from the council in light of the comments in opposition? Mr. Flynn.
Chairman, I just want to note that in the limited time I've been on the council, we have spent, I don't even know how many hours reviewing proposals to support wind energy development offshore. And before my time on the council, many, many more hours, sometimes hearings going on days, with a lot of opposition to developing wind power offshore too. I mean, these are not easy issues, but the notion that the council is somehow not cognizant of issues regarding climate change and the need to shift our energy portfolio to renewable resources is simply not accurate. I just want to state that.
Thank you. Okay. Council, an apostrophe for a motion. Mr. Gomez.
Yeah, I like the people that have protested. The staff report did note that the objections did not raise to the level of something that we really needed to address. But the people here ought to understand, I live in Little Compton. My house electricity is supplied by solar. My house is 6-inch walls with Estuarine. My heat is geothermal. My air conditioning is geothermal. And I have propane gas because I need a generator because I live a quarter of a mile in the woods. And when the electricity goes out, I'm the last person to get it. So I do that, and I have a gas stove, and I need that when the electricity does fail. I had a call within the week. Somebody very concerned called me at night and was very upset about the whale kills along the coast. And it was fully attributable to those damn offshore platforms that are being put up. Now, if you go down to Chase Point in Little Compton, you can see 11 or 12, and you can see 5 off Block Island. So you laugh, but that's the way the people feel. When I drive around Tiverton, when I drive around Little Compton, I see a substantial number of signs that says no wind turbines. I see 3, 4, 5 gradually coming along, voting yes for the offshore turbines. They're a long, long way away. We have to have some interim solutions. I spent 57 years working with the Navy. My solution for Rhode Island is to put in 4 very small nuclear reactors, like is going to be done down in the middle of our Atlantic coast, because they can't work with the wind turbines. That would cover the whole state. Nobody wants to talk about that. You power them up once 40 years, you come back and power them up again. Totally safe. They've been in submarines for 60 years. I see this proposal for what it is. It's new equipment which will increase reliability and integrity, as stated in the staff report. The procedure is proven. No expansion of capability has been discussed. I worry about old infrastructure. I know what old infrastructure does. It fails. This is going to be very deep, and the diameter is choked off by the smaller pipeline on the land. I believe that in the technology that requires the reservoir that a 12-inch pipe will provide versus a 6-inch pipe is a good feature. Project is for maintenance, replacement. There is no fracking in the project. It, in my opinion, is the best interim technology we can have until renewables are really here. And as pointed out by a member of the council, that there has been an awful lot of blowback on that. That all being said, along with my opening remarks, I vote to approve the proposal as presented by the staff.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
Mr. Gomez, so your motion's based on the recommendations of staff?
Exactly, yes.
The findings in the staff report?
Findings of the staff, findings of fact, staff report, and presentations.
Please keep your comments to yourself. We're in the middle of deliberation here and discussion.
Is it based also on the filings by the applicant? And does it include the additional staff recommendation stated in the staff report, if that's staff's intention? That additional stipulation, that's in the draft assent. And does your motion include that additional stipulation?
It does.
In the draft assent?
It does.
So a motion has been made by Councilmember Gomez to approve it.
Is there a second?
Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Mr. Izzy?
It is.
Is there any discussion amongst the members on the motion?
I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead.
I'm sure many people agree with me that we respect and appreciate all of the comments that were made in opposition to the application. But I also have a tremendous amount of respect for the professional staff that has reviewed the project, conditionally approved it as a category A, freshwater wetlands, insignificant alteration on 21424, and ready to provide a final assent at the time that they receive the objections. And for that reason, I'll be voting in favor of the motion to approve the application.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the council. Mr. Flynn.
Aye.
Mr. Izzy.
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
Mr. Russolino.
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon.
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Drill, baby, drill.
They're coming in, they.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Tearing down $1 million house, $3 million houses.